Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Caucus. If I could have someone call the roll. Maybe
I call the roll, sorry. Adams,
Present.
Anane, Vallerin, Brody,
Present.
Farrell, Flynn is absent, Hoey,
Present.
Johnson,
Present.
Jones,
Present.
Egan,
Here.
Lumpkin,
Present.
Powell,
Here.
Robinson,
Here.
Williamson,
Present.
and Zamer is absent. That is 12 here. And we're also joined by City Clerk Shaniqua Jackson, Senior Assistant Corporation Counsel Mark Mahoney, Legislative Director Brian Jimenez, as well as Junior Legislative Aide Carly Johnson.
Thank you so much. We'll go through the agenda. In local laws introduced, we have a local law E of 2026 from Councilmember Powell. Local law to discuss unlawful speed contests, sideshows, and races. That will go to public safety. Councilmember Powell, did you want to say anything about that?
Sure, thank you. So as I think many of you know, there's been a long time issue on Washington Ave Extension in Ward 12 near 155 with illegal racing or drag racing. It's probably gone on since I've had my license. Since I'm an Albany native, I know that that's been a problem. Last summer, we had a lot of community meetings in that neighborhood, and a lot of neighbors were concerned about coming home at night. A lot of those Pine Bush neighborhoods have one way in and one way out because of the pine bush around them. And so you sort of have to travel through the area where this activity is taking place. So the police were doing their best to break up this activity. I had a meeting with Chief Cox and Lee Kinlan over last summer. And we talked about legislation that was passed in other areas to combat this issue. So this is legislation similar to what they have in Suffolk County and in New York City to combat illegal racing. So this is about the seizure without a warrant of vehicles used for racing and the process that sort of hearing process that they would go through. It also would charge anybody related to the racing. So that includes people flagging for the race. It includes people who are betting on the race. It includes people who are there to participate and just view the race so that the police can have some teeth in order to kind of break up the crowds that are gathering to participate in this activity. So I just wanted to give a brief overview of the legislation. Thank you. I hope you'll all support me in passing this important legislation for my district.
Thank you very much. And we have from Councilmember Hoey Local Law F of 2026. This is the establishing the Office of Violence Prevention, amending the equity agenda. I will note this is something that Councilmember Robinson has talked about when it comes to actual funding. I'll let Councilmember Hoey talk a bit. Well, maybe you want to just talk about it and then add a few things potentially after.
Did you want to assign a committee for the previews, or did I miss it?
Good. Oh, I put it. I assigned it before I had her speak, but it's going to public safety.
Okay, just want to make sure I wrote down the right thing. Thank you, President Pro Tem. All right, hope you have your seatbelts on because this is a wild ride. This is a caucus, so this is a good time to really discuss things and try to hash things out. We will have to have a public safety meeting. I'm assuming it's going to go to public safety, but just to give a brief, and I'll try to be as brief as I can, but this has been going on for over pretty close to 6-7 years. We passed the equity agenda back around 6 years ago. In the equity agenda, which by the way never went to committee, it was just kind of, I think, discharged from committee and just passed. And there was a lot of little pieces in the equity agenda that were really never kind of discussed or thought about. So things got kind of, pushed through. The major portions of the equity agenda are very good and have been working. There is a section there, though, about a violence prevention task force that would be the responsibility of the Common Council. So there was no how many people should be on the task force. There was no saying, how long the task force should go on for, when the report would come out. What was noted, though, in the equity agenda was that there'd be a member from, or members from the board of the school district, from the clergy, and it would be concentrated on troubled wards in the city. I mean, it was all good thinking and, kind of forward thinking, but the nuts and bolts weren't put into the legislation. So when the task force first met, it was Sonia Frederick and Kelly Kimbrough were the representatives from the Public Safety Committee that were on this task force. And the task force was pretty much run by Brian Shea. Brian Shea was Mayor Sheehan's chief of staff, and he also ran our campaign, I think our first campaign or second campaign. So Brian was there running the task force, making sure the members were doing what they had to do to come out with the report, come up with like events and stuff to do, and then he could provide the funding to make sure that the stuff happened. So I know there was some basketball nights where they would have like all night basketball and bring in pizza and stuff like that. Brian was able to get us the funding. Well, after the mayor, Sheehan, was elected the third time, Brian got a job as supervisor down in Westchester County and left. And when the council approached the mayor's office and said, well, who's going to replace Brian? She didn't have anybody to replace. So the deal was worked out that, look, we'll let you hire a violence prevention task force coordinator to do the work that Brian was doing with the task force. And so we went through a hiring process. We hired, and I can't think of her name now, Ramisha, who she started in late May, early June, and she only lasted till December because running the task force is not an easy matter. And then one of the members of the task force stepped up, Eric Thompson, and said that he would like to run the task force. Eric had an attendance problem and was actually asked by the city HR department to turn in his stuff. And we ended up, so we haven't had a violence prevention coordinator for over a year now. So in the meantime, the Albany Police Department has a violence prevention office. And when Mayor Applers was running, said that she wanted to set up an office of violence prevention. And many of us who went down to Baltimore witnessed that down in Baltimore, they set up an office, a central office, not silos of violence prevention, but one central violence prevention office. So the discussion came up. I know I discussed it with leadership. I said, we're legislators. We pass laws and we come up with recommendations, but we don't administer. And that was, I said, why don't we, since the mayor is going to have an office of violence prevention, excuse me, why don't we turn over the task force, which was always vague, and the report and the coordinator back to the mayor's office? And don't forget what I started with. The equity agenda that created this was done when Dorsey was the council member from the first ward. So it just made a lot of sense. In the meantime, I mean, this happened before the new council started. This discussion was going on. So I know now that there's other ideas that, well, we're giving away the money. And I talked to a couple of council members today, and they're like, well, we're giving away our money. Well, number one, it's not our money. It's the city's money. It's the taxpayers' money. And we want to see some kind of action take place, and it has to be coordinated. Do we want to have a violence prevention in the council, violence prevention in Albany Police Department, violence prevention in the mayor's office? It just doesn't make sense. We're creating these silos. And I mean, with this new administration, this is a new day for the city. This is the chance now that we can make up, in the previous administration, I'm going to be honest with you, there was a lot of, back and forth. Historically, I think there hadn't been a veto in this city in like over 100 years. This council vetoed many times legislation that came out of it. We're not just rubber stamps. But this is a whole new administration, new thinking. This trip down to Baltimore really, for me, opened up a lot of eyes. I could see what could happen. So, there's a lot of moving parts. Now, today I did get notified that somebody's been hired for this position, and I just verified, not by the mayor's office, and it could be and we're going to look into it. I know I talked to Alfredo earlier today. It could be the Albany Police Department with their violence prevention, which my feeling is that should be under the police department is under the mayor, but that's here or there, but it just doesn't make sense. So nothing's going to be done without a committee approval. Everybody will have a chance to talk about it. We can discuss it. Again, I'm coming over. I had a bad flu over the weekend, so I do apologize about coughing and talking, but I think this is a good move, but I'm not an expert. I mean, I'm a legislator, and I'm here to hear public opinion. I'm here to hear what my colleagues have to say, but we got to do something. We just can't keep saying, "Oh, let's do this or let's do that." We got to come up with a good plan. We got too many young kids killing each other. Some years ago, there was a 4-year-old shot, and he was in Metropolitan Church, Jamel's church, and I went in there and I broke down in front of him. I couldn't believe the coffin there with a big bow on it, big, beautiful white coffin, and a little 4-year-old kid in there. That's not what Albany is, and we got to do something about it. I hear it all the time from everybody here. We can all have these ideas, but we got to do it coordinated. We got to come up with a plan that involves the whole city, not just downtown, not just uptown. I was embarrassed. I was talking to the councilman. Well, they're going to bring up. The rumor was that the coordinator was going to be this person. Whoever got hired was for the uptown wards. I'm saying there's no violence in the uptown ward. And then I actually pulled out the report that came out today, and I couldn't believe it. There is violence all over the city. Some of us don't have as much, but it moves. I mean, that's the way things are. So I know I'm carrying on this conversation. I'm passionate about doing something about the violence. And my only aside is, and we're dealing also with the CPRB. Every day I have to open the paper and see something putting down what we're doing about the CPRB. We're working our tails off. I can't tell you how many times we've been here, at lunchtime trying to work out stuff. But that's what happens when you're trying to administer and try to legislate. But that was the only option that we had at the time. So I'm just throwing that in because when this whole thing started with the task force, we didn't have the CPRB under us. They were under the Albany Law School. This is a recent occurrence. So we got to, in my mind, that's the bigger responsibility, is to make sure that we have the CPRB up and running and not having to worry about administering a task force to come up with ideas about violence prevention. So I'll shut up at this point. And again, if you have, I know other people, I see hands going up. I'll let Jenny do the call, but we will have a meeting on this and it'll be open and let's really discuss it. Thank you.
I thank you, Councilmember Hoey. I see Keegan Johnson, Ben Ballerin, and I know Councilmember Robinson wants to speak. I wanted to note that and I know that Councilmember Robinson will speak to this much more articulately, but I think that there are a lot of things and a lot of ideas that happened in Baltimore and exciting things that are happening, and council members that went on the trip, and maybe even those that didn't go on the trip, but are inspired by the success of what's happening in Baltimore and a desire to bring that here. And that is bigger than just this position. And so the discussion, I think a lot of it is a lot more about the funding attached to that position than the position itself, to ensure that there's support needed, because the success in Baltimore is not just one position, it's a lot of positions. So that's, I think, a lot of what we're talking about here. It's not necessarily, I think where it lands is an important discussion point that we will get into in depth. But one of the things I've asked Councilmember Howie and the administration is that I think that we need a broader discussion, like a broader public discussion about the experience in Baltimore, what's happening, like the experience of legislators going to Baltimore, the ideas that they have, because I also think that having that discussion at a committee meeting in public, it's important for the public to hear what happened. It's important for the public to hear some of the ideas that council members have that they're looking to do legislation on, because it does take time to build legislation. But it's also the funding attached that it's a valid point to consider that for the future. So Councilmember Keegan, then Councilmember Johnson.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I love the idea and the concept of having a formal office for violence prevention and the coordination of violence prevention activities between the council, the administration, and all of our city departments that are working in various capacities to engage the community in positive pro-social activity versus some of the things that we're seeing. I think my concern as chair of the finance committee is that when we're talking about establishing an office of violence prevention, it's not going to run the way we see these activities run in other municipalities on just one position. So when we're doing legislation and we are claiming that it doesn't have a fiscal impact, I think that's a bit disingenuous. And for me, just as feedback to you as we're having this conversation, what I want to see is a much more fleshed out plan of where we anticipate or what we anticipate this office potentially looking like and what the fiscal impact is going to be, not just this year, but 5 years from now as that office gets fleshed out, and how we anticipate tapping into revenue sources to offset those costs, because as we all know, the city is running on what it can run on now. So we're either going to have to look to make cuts in other departments to fill out this particular office, or we're going to need to find revenue streams to support that don't currently exist and aren't currently coming into the city. So that's just, in looking at this, I love this, but I also want to make sure that we can pay for this. And that's the one thing that I would ask that we really be thoughtful about, because otherwise I think we're over-promising and under-delivering to the public, and I don't want to do that, particularly on this issue.
Thank you. I'm gonna just get straight to the point. Yes, violence is spreading throughout the city, but it's different. The violence that is experienced in the lower wards is totally different than the, spec here and the spec there that happen in other wards. One of the problems that I have is people voice their concern, people from the lower wards, and decisions are being made by people that don't have the same experience, don't have constituents that are constantly living in these situations. And I just think that because the CPRB, and I brought that, there's some answers that haven't been answered. And I hope that someone did some homework to the question that I presented, because these are things that are feeding into us being able to, or have to, open up the newspaper and see these articles. This is, what is happening in real time in here is affecting our communities. And so when decisions are made without the conversation going through the full council, you're going to have people that are going to be upset. I don't know a group of people that are willing to give up money. Although things are happening in Baltimore, we're Albany, New York, and we gave the position 2 people tried. I think that the equity agenda has been used in when it's best for people. People bring up the equity agenda and they poke holes at it to support their point. The equity agenda was created is because it wasn't equity in the city, and it still isn't equity in the city. And every time it's a conversation about inner city, all I hear is, "Oh, we got to get it right," and the only way we're gonna get it right is when you start listening to people that come from those areas, because we know something. I'm here for a reason. I'm here for a reason, and I say I use myself as a first person expert. My brother got shot 9 times by 2 people. So when we talking about this stuff, you don't know what goes through and I'm not just talking to you, Tom. I'm talking to everyone. People don't know my experiences. When I talk about Parks and Rec, people don't know my experiences because I worked for Parks and Rec. I was one of the only council people of the last 2 terms that worked for the city of Albany. So I bring a wisdom, I bring an understanding, I bring a knowledge set that some people should hear me out. And on this point right here, there's no way that I would support that money going to the mayor's office. I'm in full support of the mayor, but we have a job to do. And what I hear a lot of times coming from our body is it's tough, difficult conversations. We shouldn't shy away from that because that's what we've been elected to do. And, I don't feel no difference in something that happens in the South End than I do in something happened in the 15th Ward, because it's Albany, because it's humans. Just like I didn't feel any difference in signing on to the Israel call for peace or the Palestinian call for peace, because I really stand in harmony with peace. And it's not one-sided. But a lot of times I leave here feeling like it's a one-sided conversation. And as far as violence, we need the level of violence that Albany is dealing with. We need a violence protector. We need violence thinking in the county. We need it in the sheriffs and the APD. We need it in every entity right now, because one of us is going to get it right. Just having one approach to something is not the most effective approach. And the money is in our possession. We have people that are feel passionate about this, because like I said, February 13th, 1993 changed my life forever. And when I came home to Albany, I had no intentions on being a councilman, but there was a call, there was a need, and I just don't speak up to go against people. I listen to my community, and my community is sick and tired of gunplay, people pulling guns out, using them and not using them, because that's another thing that happens. People pull those guns out, there's no police report of that. It's a lot of gun activity in the city of Albany. We need to have as many violence protection programs going on as possible, because our numbers aren't going down, they're going up. And I just would feel better if the decisions aren't made at the table without us being a part of that decision. I need to be a part of those decisions, because when y'all make decisions, I get phone calls, and I can't answer a question to something that I wasn't part of. But as a council, when whatever part of the group makes a decision, all of us have to carry the weight of it. And again, I'm 100% against us giving up that position at this time. Now, if the mayor's office creates something that says, hey, we may not, then that we'll get at that. I'll consider that at that fork in the road. But right now we have to do what we're assigned to do, so we don't rely heavily on the mayor's office. We don't overburden her because she's trying to address many things, and it's just one corner office. So I would say that I hope that people will be open to the feelings of the members that violence is it seems like it's an everyday occurrence, and understand that we have a job to be loud and be voiceful to make sure that we just don't make a knee-jerk reaction and give away something that with all 15 people in here, we should be able to come up with a approach to make sure that the money isn't being wasted, to make sure that productive approaches are touched on. So thank you.
Thank you, President Pro Temp. So two things. I just want to clear the air as much as I can on the issue. And I appreciate the call from Councilman Hoey this afternoon, actually this morning. I did reach out to the mayor's office. I was able to get to speak to somebody afterwards, and they did confirm that no one has made any moves on this position that we're talking about, and that they respect our process to get through local law F. So that I just want to make sure I clear the air with that. If there's any information people are hearing, the administration has made no action on this position. There are other positions in the police department, like the Councilman Hoey said, that have already been filled. That the person actually went to Baltimore with us. So that position is long-standing, does not affect what we have in front of us today. So I just want to make sure I clear the air with that, so there's no concern that there's any type of, trying to pull the wool over this body. That's not what's occurring. I also want to make clear that this is something that we will discuss and we will go back and forth, and that's good. And that's good government. I do hope we can find some type of compromise on this. And it might mean adding more language or any more resources, or making some compromises elsewhere to make it work. But I do think the one thing that I can say I got out of the Baltimore experience was that it's multi-layered and it's intertwined, meaning you have people saw at the schools with people that people then saw at the streets. You had people that were working, excuse me, at events or at hat spots were the same people that were working at dismissal and walking kids to classes. So I'm saying that because I understand the limited resources that we all work with, and how we all try to maximize what resources we have any kind of authority over. And I say that not just with us and the administration, I say that with us and the school district. I say that with us and the county. I say that with us and the state. Every entity has their own resources, and everyone is trying to maximize what they have with their vision. I think we need to look at how can we bring as many resources as we can together to maximize the output at our residents. So I'm not going to take any more time. I look forward to these discussions. I know they're going to be passionate, and I know they're going to be a bit intense, and that's okay. Um, I think this issue affects everybody, and it affects some of our, and I agree 100% with Councilmember Johnson. It affects many of our communities much more intensely, much more personal, and much more um, direct. So, um, it's going to committee, and we will have good conversations on it. Thank you.
And just to reiterate, we did confirm that that violence prevention position is the position that's going to the police department. It's not the position that we're talking about. So that hired position is something that the mayor would have been able to hire regardless. Councilmember Nane, and then if nobody, if Councilmember Adams, did you put your hand? Okay. And then Councilmember Nane.
Yeah, thank you. I've been a council for about 8 years, and when this position was created, um, I had some pushback, particularly when I worked in the state. It's just more so giving the council a position that you could only hire someone for 53,000 to 76,000, and essentially looked at it as an unfunded mandate because when this individual come up with a recommendation, you need money to execute the ideas and the programs that they have. The mayor's office have all the resources, particularly when it comes to how we're spending money to prevent, going towards violence prevention. So for me, it comes down to money. The council has a $1.4 million budget, and some of it goes to council members, some goes to our staff. But particularly when it comes to addressing violence in our city, you need more than $53,000. You need more money than that. And I think that the mayor is currently in a position where to attract not just public dollars, but also private sector dollars. The council cannot get no private sector dollars. It just hasn't happened. I don't believe that one person could solve all of the city violence. I think it needs to be a coordinated effort. And that's why I'm in support of this legislation. I know there are some council members that said that they want to be part of the conversation. I urge all my colleagues, again, this is going to the Public Safety Committee. Committees is where you also could express your support or opposition. So again, it's going to Public Safety Committee for further discussion. There's no decision that has been made. But again, it comes down to funding. And I don't believe that one person in the common council's staffer could really make a dent on the public safety concern that we're seeing all across our city. So again, I will be supporting this legislation. It will go to the public safety for further discussion. And the Violence Prevention Task Force, it was run by the mayor's office for the past 2 years. There was Brian Shea that was running it, and when he left, there was nobody on the council, particularly that were working with the Violence Prevention Task Force to get some of the goals that we would like to see accomplished. So again, I see this as a no-brainer. I think if we really want to put a dent on a public safety concern, we need all the resources, public and private, to address it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, President Pro Tem. Something I would like to call for an executive session for a personnel matter. If somebody would second it, I'd really appreciate it. You got a second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Wait,
but we have to, we need a second.
I'd just like to thank everybody for their dialogue and everybody for their passion. Tom, it's apples and oranges. You stated that we have so much on our plate with the CBR, with the CBR money, on task force, that we don't have time to deal with the violence prevention task force. That's apples and oranges. You know, we legislators, we can't put one issue that's affecting the constituency down because we have to deal with another one. We have to deal with both of them on a parallel field. So, you know, that conversation doesn't hold merit. I definitely agree with the finance chair about it all boils down to the money, the financing part. I am in total agreement to moving the task force into the mayor's office because I see her vision and I understand her vision. And I know that she can move the task force along where we don't have to worry about people showing up to the meetings, have a quorum. She's ready for that. That's something that she can do. Okay. But as far as the little 55,000, the 79,000, that's already in our operational budget. Okay. There's legislation coming through, right, that wasn't acted upon during the last administration, during the last council. Okay, it's being drafted right now. It's not going to go out to public until it goes to the Public Safety Committee, until it goes to every council member, build this legislation together. Because this legislation about the teenage violence and the shooting that's going on, we need the input of all 15 members. I just left a response shooting today, 2 days in a row, right? On March 11th, there was a shooting, right, involving a 14 years old. Then turn around, there was another shooting, no, this was true, but it was another shooting the next day, right? The first shooting for the 14-year-old assisted in Councilman Lumpkin Ward. The next shooting assisted in Councilman Rollins Ward, okay? 14 years old. Okay, so the passion that Councilman Johnson is saying that something has to be done. We as legislators, I'm all for moving the task force over there, right? But we have to take the funding that we, and like Councilman Anami said, you know, we can't, you know, come up with legislation that doesn't have some type of finance to back it. Okay, the legislation that's coming forward is only going to be a pilot program. It's only going to be implemented during the summer, during non-school hours. Right? We're looking for people. You've been to Baltimore. We're looking for people that live in them zones where you have them high violence shootings and everything else. 15 years old and under. It's not the legislation that's coming forward is not 16 and 17. It's 15 and under. And I am also working on legislation on the county level as far as parental responsibility. That's after the teenagers become involved in the system. But right now on the local level, we're trying to save them voluntarily. We're trying to get inside the homes just by having contact with them after hours, because there should be nobody 15 years old in the streets at 2 o'clock in the morning. So we have to have people there that, first of all, may know the parents, may know the child, because they probably worked with the child during the school year. Okay, every child has a telephone. Call your parents. Let's make sure that she knows. So if the parents working, the $500,000 that was ghost money, okay, that's supposed to be for the late night programs or whatever, the assistance, you know what I'm saying? Now, it's a shock to me that it's ghost money. Because again, with what the finance chair said, if Dorsey have to chase that 500,000, she have to chase that 500,000. But why take the little bit of money that we have out of our budget that can be some type of seed money for something that we as a council can agree on to attack this balance this summer, because it's getting hot. You know, we have to be proactive. We have to stand up. We have to say that we're not going to tolerate this. We can't just continue to wait for it to happen and then just go to the short responses, go to the hospital. At least we can say we made a concerted effort to try to get into these homes and find out what's causing this behavior of our children. And it doesn't have to be an oral award. Let's just follow the red dots. Let's just follow the red dots. So again, I'm in total agreement to moving the Violence Task Force to the mayor's office. My only concern is we have to keep that money in the council budget, because once we give them that money, we're not going to get it back. We're not going to get it back. You have 4 new council members for lower wards, man. Let's give us a chance to brainstorm. Give us a chance to sit at the table and say, you know what I'm saying, what is your constituents thinking? You know what I'm saying, we're planning town halls in all these lower wards. We're not just going to produce this legislation and just pass it out without the community's input, because this is some very, very, it's going to be controversial legislation, even down to the words of the word curfew. But if you don't use the word curfew, it's going to be just like that 17-year-old who got caught with that 9mm with the Uzi clip, who the force let go the next day with an ankle bracelet. So he's back up in the house on Clinton Avenue telling his friends, ain't no repercussions. I got caught with a gun with a 9 clip, and I'm right out here to get another 9 clip. We have to be stern, we have to be fair, we have to be firm, and we have to address this shit head on. Excuse my language, because if we sit back and we passive and passive, it's not going to work. It's 11 o'clock at night, so you know where your kids are. I grew up off that it used to come on the TV. We need to get to the radio station, to the TV. We need to let them know that the city of Albany is not going to tolerate this. We want to save our youth, you know what I'm saying? But if our youth continue to go down that track, now it's on the county level. And we still going to give them a chance, because we need the parents to get involved. We need to know, you know what I'm saying, the structure of the household. Is it single parent? Is it multi-parents? If they working? If they receiving public assistance? What's the health care? It's just so much. There's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of moving parts. So for somebody to say this, come out and say they support this without hearing it out, that's ridiculous. That's ludicrous. You know, you just can't support something on its face. We have to dig, and we have to dig. We have to listen to every council person that's affected through this balance in their wards, because like Councilman Johnson said, they got to go back to their communities and they got to hear from their constituents. So let's do these town halls. Let's get down there. Come on down when I have mine at the center. Come on down when Councilman Williamson has it on Delaware. You know, and you tell them why you want this to move over, and why you want the funding and everything else, and you taking everything out of the council that can give us seed money to move this pilot program forward. So therefore, the chair don't have to worry about finding this money year and year and year, because it's only a pilot program. If we can't make it work from the 57 to 72, whatever's in our budget, then it don't work. But at the same time, we can find partnerships that can buy into it. We can go to the school district. We can go to the county. Well, under that balance, they have some anti-bullying grants over there, and see, can we have them buy into what's going on? Because it's going to be a long, hot summer, you know, and we want to be proactive. We don't want to wait till it happen again. You know, 14 years old, it's getting younger and younger. You know, when the corporate council called me, yo, Councilman, do you want to do 7? No, not 17 and under, 15 and under. Let's make it where, you know what I'm saying, because we have to break it down to age groups. Because 16 to 17 years old is going to be very challenging. Hopefully we can have conversations with them to have conversations with the 15, 14, and 13 years old. But we have to have people that's from these impacted communities on the ground working. And a lot of them work not worrying about the pay. But they do need some type of seed money. They need something. Okay, so, I mean, and what do we get paid? We get paid $30,000 a year. That's gas money. So we can't say that we sitting here doing this for a livelihood. We all got to work some other type of job, you know what I'm saying, to make our ends meet. I don't believe not one person on council is living off, you know, what they get from this for their public service. They do it because they have a passion. They do it because they believe in their community, and they believe that, you know what I'm saying, they are a voice for the voiceless. They was voted in the office to do a job, and they sit here and they're going to do the job to the best of their ability. And again, I agree with Councilman. When leadership makes decisions, please bring it to the full body, because everything calls for discussion. So it won't be what happened? Why? Just like at the last minute, we allowed to address public comment. I've been in public service over a decade. Ain't never in county, in city. I'm not trying to be here at 2 o'clock in the morning before we and hot button topics before we even get to our agenda. Oh my God. Even that issue, I think we should, you know what I'm saying, call for a vote on that, and just instead of implementing that into, you know what I'm saying, our daily agenda, because it's opening up a can of worms. But not to digress, you know, I am all for moving the legislation out of council to allow the task force to go under the mayor's leadership. But that funding that we have in our budget, we ain't getting the 500,000. Thank you.
If I may be allowed to add, for a long time, the city had one gang prevention worker. His name was Ronald Cook Barrett, and he was effective. He took that position and he ran with it. And, you know, people ask, why is why? Once Ron Cook Barrett left and you know, at some point they brought me in and I worked alongside him. And, you know, at first I had you know, it's a white guy, you know, many questions that I had. But once I got in there and I saw the connections and the relationships that he had, and you know, it was phenomenal. So when we look at it and say it's only one person and there's no funding, if you get the right person in there, their passion creates a lot of things. And once again, I'm gonna say something. If it's, you know, when we build it, they'll come. If we build something that's effective, the money will come. Because at the end of the day, many people want a safer Albany. Many people want their kids to be able to move out throughout the city without some of the things that these kids have to face. Like what kids have to face today, if you're not in tune with them, you'll never know what's on their plate. And I just want to say, we have had tremendous success with a one-person approach, long as it's the right person. Thank you.
So to, I think, move forward on this topic, first and foremost, the town halls, please make sure if you're able to share those dates so that, you know, I know a lot of us would like to go to support and be part of them. So I think they're wonderful, and I just make sure that you share them so that we can attend and also share them out as we can. But it might be a good idea for the Public Safety Committee to have a discussion about, like a broader discussion about violence and violence prevention. And sounds like it needs to be bigger than just what happened in Baltimore. I think that can inform it, but it does seem like that would be a really good idea. And if I could have, I want to make sure if we have a show of hands of members that are not on the Public Safety Committee that would definitely like to be there, so we can make sure staff that is, you know, if you're not, and even if you are on the Public Safety Committee, it's probably easier to just raise your hand if you want to be there. But so we can make sure that staff is noting who wants to be there, so that we can, it likely would be something a full council would do, but sometimes it doesn't always work. But or everybody put your hands up high so that Carly can note it down. And then I think that's basically everybody. Okay, so we'll just see what we can do with that. It might be something that maybe we can do that on another Wednesday caucus night. And we can check in with the mayor's office. I think if there is anybody that, and Councilmember Robinson, I think you would be a good person, but if there's any council members that have ideas on people that they think should be there aside from reaching out to the mayor's office, and obviously APD, please let staff know and we'll see what we can do.
Jim, I suggest that we have more than one meeting. This is going to be, I think we should have, in my own mind, 4 or 5 meetings about this topic and that we're going to fully explore. But I think the first couple will be definitely heavy duty. Thank you.
Again, Tom, I'm not against moving the task force into the mayor's office. Let's be, I just want to make that known. I believe that the mayor's office have a vision, and I believe that the task force would do well under her administration. My conversation is the funding that's attached to that piece of legislation.
Agree. And we also get to appoint people to the task force in the current legislation, 3, and then they appoint 4. So it'll be a 7-person task force. I also suggested when we did before, we had working groups. So we didn't have to worry about open meeting laws and stuff, where we could split up some of the topics and have people work independently. You can do it by Zoom just to make things more easy. So, I mean, Mark, I got to say, what a passionate, you should run for president. I mean, really. Very good.
Again, Tom, is not the task force. Let her handle
It's
that.
the finance.
Like you said,
Got it.
we too busy doing something else. We got something more important under our belt. So the task force, let her put the people that she feel that she have in play in them positions that's gonna have a quorum, that's gonna be at the meetings, that's gonna be, I'm just saying as long as we have that money in our budget, even if we don't utilize it for a position for someone who would be not a silo, because everybody would report to the mayor's office. But still, we as a council, we can't just, without dialogue, I think that is the monies is, we have it in our budget. If we move the monies over, we're not going to get it back in our budget.
And I think that we can start with having a meeting at a caucus that I still think it would make the most sense for it to be a public safety committee meeting that starts after caucus. But we can go from there to see additional meetings, things like that. I think that discussion will kind of lead itself to next steps for that specific process. And I would agree. I think Councilmember Johnson said we need every possible thing out there. So I think it's great that there are town halls happening. I think as many ways that we can look at this to help as possible is great. So I really appreciate everybody's thoughts and passion about it, because that's what makes things happen ultimately. So that will go to public safety, because I don't think I noticed that. And resolutions introduced. Oh, sure, yeah.
I love the idea of a series of these. We had one last summer in 6th Ward that we had Albany County crime victims, we had the chief of police, we had neighborhood representation, we had all manner of different people speak. I think the lesson, at least we learned from that specific opportunity to bring people together, was as much structure and as defined an agenda as possible helps facilitate people feeling like they're getting something out of it. They're not just going to a session to vent. And I think we know what the problems are. We get the data. We have the lived experience. We need to do better. And I think one of the things we still are struggling with is understanding the data that needs to inform this and the relationships with non-city people. So the school district, the county, including both mental health, and the health side, DCFS, and all of the prevention and raise the age funding that they have and spend between tens of millions of dollars every year. The sheriff, who actively patrols in the city of Albany now as well. I think taking this on as a city-specific problem is actually narrowing our focus way too early in the process. And there are people who get a lot of taxpayer funding, who have similar responsibilities, and who we need to not just coordinate with, not just ask to come to the table and like give a report out, but actually take some accountability in helping us collaboratively solve these problems. And I don't, the mayor and the county executive, or the previous mayor and the county executive, I know that there's no love lost there. My hope is that we are moving forward for the benefit of everybody who lives in the city and the county. But I would just urge that whatever the public forums are, whether they're meetings of the Public Safety Committee, which I'm very much looking forward to because I think it's incredibly important, but I don't think it can just be putting the mayor on the hot spot. It's got to involve all levels of law enforcement. And in Albany, that includes state police, the sheriff, and the city APD. And it includes all of the other folks who have responsibilities to either prevent or intervene in the social determinants of violence, the aftermath of violence, and the prevention of violence in the first place. So I'm happy to take on some of those roles, having worked in those, with those departments directly at the county level. I don't want us to think this is a city problem only to solve, because we need more help than we've been able to drum up ourselves.
I think that makes a lot of sense. I will say with this first meeting, I think there's potential for growth in different directions to kind of make the decisions on what following meetings could look like, who's invited, things like that. Because Councilmember Brody, you're right, there's a lot of different agencies and groups that are involved in public safety, and they don't all coordinate. And there's a lot of different supports that are out there that are not under control of the city, and that can be very problematic. But they do support people within the city. But maybe we can start things focused on the city and then grow from there to see exactly what makes the most sense so that we can kind of move things forward. And also, just not for nothing, it's probably easier to get just city people quicker to a meeting, and then we can go from there. Thank you. We will keep moving through the agenda. Ordinances are all held. Resolutions introduced. We have Councilmember Zamer reappointing Donald Hyman to the PEG board. That will go to the PEG board, but this does highlight that we do need one more person, although we could have more than one too, that would be willing to serve on the PEG board. Currently, it's Councilmember Zamer. Are you still willing, Councilmember Ballant, to serve on the PEG? Is there anybody else that would be willing to serve on the council PEG? You're not actually serving on the PEG board itself, you're just on the council ad hoc committee for it. No, this is the council ad hoc committee, not the, so he would have to be a council member. But I did see Councilmember Anane's hand, and so thank you very much. So that will go to the council PEG ad hoc committee. Councilmember Adams, resolution 173226R, resolution of the Common Council declaring City of Albany to be a lead agency for a secret review for ordinance and declaring it an unlisted action. Councilmember Adams, do you want to speak on this, or it might be something that we need Martha to speak on?
So this is an unlisted action under seeker, and therefore the council would declare lead agency, and the resolution says that there's a negative declaration and that there wouldn't be a negative impact on the environment by changing the zoning from land conservation to mixed-use neighborhood edge.
Clarify for those council members that were at the planning meeting or listening in. Again, this is just another confirmation of the legislation to change the zoning inside of Lincoln Park of the Sunshine School to the from the land use to the MUCE zoning from the land conservation title. So this is just letting people know that the environmental study is good, no issues, no impacts to the environment or surrounding area. So hopefully when it comes to that side of things, people feel a lot more comfortable.
That's something that we will be voting on. Oh, Councilmember Powell.
Thank you. I just wanted to mention that I wasn't able to come to committee. I actually wanted to come down on Monday to be present, but I wasn't able to. And I tried to view the meeting on my phone and on my computer, and I couldn't get the sound to work. I don't know if it was working in general. I just wanted to say that because I really wanted to listen to the conversation, but it was not happening. And I see kind of others nodding. So maybe there's something with our sound here.
Yeah, I can speak on that. The city is switching over IT networks for greater security. We were kind of grandfathered in, but that's going to be disappearing very soon. I sent an email about the same email I sent about the COA employees. The COA employees managed is the same reason why we've been having a couple of tech issues. Tomorrow morning, we're going to be trying to resolve them with IT. And then I believe we'll be having a tech coming, or we'll have a new PC next week, which should hopefully resolve some of these issues. But it is inactive. We are aware of the situation. We're actively working to resolve it.
That's one of the reasons why Brian is there, because he's had to kind of get creative with things and his personal computer. So thank you, Brian, for that. Next, and just a note for any council members that are not aware of secret review, when you hear that it's a negative ruling, that sounds like it's bad, but that actually is a good thing. It means that there's no negative impacts on the environment, which Martha did say, but it gets confusing. Every time I hear that, I think, oh, that's bad, and it's actually a good thing. Next, we have Councilmember Lumpkin's Resolution 183226R, a resolution of the Common Council commemorating the centennial Black History observance and celebrating the 91st anniversary of the NAACP Albany branch. Would you like to say anything on it, Councilmember Lumpkin?
Not at this time, but I'm putting together a statement I'm going to make at the time that is appropriate.
Excellent. And I'm guessing this is something that all members will want to be co-sponsors for. If I could get a show of hands. Yes. So we'll note that as all sponsor will be voting on that at that meeting. And next we have Councilmember Hoey's Resolution 193226R, a resolution of the Common Council approving a transfer of budgeted funds and a change in the authorized positions included in the 2026 budget, which will affect the salary rate or salary total.
Well, that's the part that, so what we were originally talking about, and I messed up, but this is what people are concerned about. So,
That's what yes. So this is the finance, that will go to the finance
Good.
committee. This is the finance portion of that. I would recommend, I think it's something that we'll have a broader conversation with the administration on, but Councilmember Keegan, I would perhaps hold to move this until the other one is moved through public safety.
Particularly after this evening's discussions, that is going to be my plan. So and I'm happy to coordinate time to make public safety meetings to talk about the other piece of legislation in tandem to the best of my ability to be physically present for those so that this can run as smoothly as possible. But I don't feel it would be appropriate to move that at this time until further discussion.
Great. So that will go to finance, but we will be holding on that. And it could also be something that, should council members think it's appropriate, maybe it's something that we have after we go through a process and we've discussed things, might even do them on the same evening, something like that. In resolutions held, Councilmember Zamer's resolution 143126R, that passed through the planning committee on the 9th. So we'll be voting on that. Go ahead, Councilmember Robinson.
I just wanted to add on to the two pieces of legislation, right? By no means possible that I want to hold up the first piece of legislation, because I know the mayor's office is going to hit the ground running with this task force. And if we can release it out of the committee with a positive recommendation, maybe she can begin to find resources to actually staff up to participate the positions that she wants to fill within that violence coordinator committee. So, I just wanted to make sure that I don't want to hold up, any legislation dealing with moving the task force to the mayor's office.
So that's something that, and we can absolutely do that. So Councilmember Keegan can hold on moving the finance piece, but Councilmember Hoey wants to move forward with that. We can do that. And I think we'll still move forward with our next available Wednesday caucus. I'll have to connect with staff to see when that could be. But
Just quickly, just because the next Wednesday caucus was scheduled for April 1st, which is Passover, but we have 3 weeks until our next one, so we could do the 25th, which is 2 weeks from today. I'll send you guys out all the scheduling reminders tomorrow for the broad conversation, as well as these pieces of legislation that can be discussed. So
Why don't-
touch base? But I just want to inform you that we don't have that caucus.
thank you very much for that, because yes, we do not want to have a council meeting on a major religious holiday. So why don't we plan on having caucus on the 25th? What I would really like, if you could just touch base send an email out tomorrow. Any council member that is unable, because this is not a meeting that's on our schedule necessarily, please check your schedule. If you're not able to attend Caucus Public Safety Committee on the 25th, please let staff know as soon as possible. Councilmember Keegan.
And I just wanted to note, one of my thoughts, Councilmember Hoey, is that maybe we, and this is also perhaps a discussion for leadership with respect to the transfer of funds bill for the violence prevention coordinator, that may be the opportunity that we have to have them give us a more fully fleshed out finance concept, because I do hear Councilmember Robinson's concerns too. I mean, it does make sense that we might have a position in the council body that is there to also support our work on that effort and the conversations that we need to have at the community level. So I think perhaps this is one of those cases where we may ask them to provide significantly more information in the legislative intent memo as to where this whole process is going from their point of view, so that we have a better idea and understanding of how those funds are really going to be utilized, if we should give them up.
That is an excellent point. So we could potentially have a committee meeting on it without necessarily planning on passing it through, but to have the
Correct,
broader
but
discussion.
I do think if we're going to schedule that meeting, that they should be sending us that prospectus in advance, I don't want to schedule it without having those materials, which to me would be a discussion we'd have in leadership.
Agreed. And yeah, and I think that there might be council members that we want to make sure are able to attend that as well. So it might be a good idea to, if we do move in that direction, to look at a Wednesday for that as well, that more council members can attend and be part of that conversation, because if we're having a broader look at those finances, I think that that's something that a lot of council members want to talk about. Where is that $500,000? What does it look like? Is there anything there for it? Or are the funds that is in the council line, is that the main funding for it? In which case we do have to be very careful of the choices that we make with that. So thank you for that, because that is an excellent point, and it is something, a discussion that we should definitely be having. Councilmember Brody?
We're talking about having a meeting on the evening of the 25th, specifically to talk about public safety. That's not on the calendar currently, right?
No, nothing. This
Correct.
is all, because
Yes.
it's not introduced till Monday, so we really can't have a
Right, I
committee
just want to
meeting
make
there.
sure I've got my
Sure.
P's
Yes.
and Q's ordered here.
Yeah, what we're considering doing is having a caucus. So we are unable to have a caucus on April 1st because that is Passover.
That wasn't, that was never on the schedule. Right.
Correct, because of Passover. But in order to keep this conversation moving, to Councilmember Robinson's point, things are heating up already, and it's not something that we should delay with. So instead of doing, if it just so happened that the month fell differently, we would have had a caucus on the 25th.
Okay.
Or on that Wednesday, I should say. So that's why I'm flagging it, because it's not something that's in council members' schedules currently, and it would be good for everybody to look, because our evenings fill up quickly. So there's an excellent chance that someone's not able to attend. Councilmember Johnson?
Thank you. I wanted to talk about two different issues. One is the school bus cameras. We have two schools that have no students in it, but the lights are flashing outside those schools. And if you travel up there, some people driving fast and some people driving slow. I don't understand the need for the lights to be on. The one school is on Western Ave, and I believe the second school is on Central Ave. And I believe both of those schools are closed down. And so, but when I ride by them, those lights are still flashing like they're open. And so I would love to know why on that. And then the second thing that I want to talk about that everybody's talking about is these potholes in the city. I've seen someone made a video and put it on Facebook, and they put a cone and people are calling me saying, "Hey, my tire got bust." And so I just think that our services, I have watched our services get cut for the last 8 years. They're pulling back on street sweeping, on a number of things. And it's really starting to show in the streets, like even in neighborhoods that you normally don't see this type of wear and tear. So I don't know what we can do, and I hope that when things are brought up, we're looking into it, because I don't just ask questions because this is what I'm thinking. These are the things that people are bringing to us, and I'm finding out that people are watching these meetings because they say, "Thank you for bringing that up," and that's what it's all about. So I would love to find out answers as to why those cameras are still flashing.
I will say the one on Western Avenue, the camera is not operational. It has not been, but Councilmember Hoey now represents
Yeah,
it.
because I had Bill Trudeau cover the sign up with a bag, and I'm waiting for him to take the sign down. But the story on that camera, it's also a red light camera. So if you go through a red light there, you still will get a ticket, but it is not doing the speeding. I'm not sure of the Central Avenue School. If you could get me that info, I'd really appreciate
Yeah,
it.
I haven't heard, because I know Blessed Sacrament.
Sacrament.
Yeah, Blessed Sacrament is still open. Yeah, it's still a school. And
And
I will say though, even though All Saints is closed, people speed like 60 miles an hour down that road. So from my perspective as the former council member, if there's anything that we can do to slow down people through there, I'm thrilled for it. So like, that is a place that people speed. They don't get tickets. The sign will come down, but honestly, like if those yellow lights slow people down, that's a good thing because people go fast.
We still have APD. APD has, authority over traffic, and we've taken that back. But good old fashioned police work is still effective in this city.
It's not as effective with speeding, unfortunately, but regardless, it's something, just a yellow flashing light, you can't get a ticket with it there.
I'm sorry, I'm on the same brainwave tonight as Derek. With the police and the speeding, I was talking to Deirdre at our last meeting, and she explained to me about what's going on Lark Avenue. We can reach out to the chief. If we know specific areas and times, they will send extra patrols for us. And on the potholes, I got a call. I had to go right before this meeting to a lady in my ward. She tripped in a pothole, broke her nose, has damage to her elbow, maybe cracked her teeth. And so I sent the picture of her to Sergio and Frank Zioli saying, somebody got hurt, and the pothole's right in front of the school. So can you imagine kids running across, tripping on the pothole? I agree with you. We need to really kind of address the pothole situation, but we're on the same brain on that tonight.
The
Thank you.
potholes are horrible right now. And I know that they have, this time of year is tough to fill them, but it's just unacceptable for them to be it's unsafe. It's not like, to your point, people are getting pop tires, things like there can be a major thing that happens with the depth of the potholes. I do highly recommend reporting. I encourage everybody to report them as much as possible, but we need to go beyond just reporting them, to Councilmember Johnson's point. Does anybody else have anything? I did want Councilmember Ballerin to go through our leadership discussion with the mayor's office.
I just had one question. Councilmember Keegan, you were talking about the finance hearing, the second part of the transfer, only when we receive additional information on the budget implications. Did I hear that right?
Not just the budget implications, but what is the plan, right? Because you're asking us to give up a staff position to sort of shift the task force over, but to me, you need to also flesh out what does the Office for Violence Prevention look like? What is the staffing plan going to look like 2 or 3, 4 years down the line as we build out that program? And are we going to be utilizing existing positions that then come under one roof from various places? Have we identified potential revenue sources to offset those costs? Like what is the real picture? Because again, when you look at Boston, when you look at Baltimore, all who are doing very similar work, they are not funding that work through property tax levy. They're receiving state funds to be able to pay for those programs, and they are acting as a coordinator amongst a range of nonprofit and other government agencies that are working in tandem together to provide services. We typically, as a city, are not eligible for that money. That money goes to the county. So I need to have an understanding of what we're trying to build, what we're trying to commit ourselves to, and to ensure that as we move forward with this, that we are not promising the community something that we don't have the fiscal means to deliver to them. And that's my big concern, is knowing where we are fiscally in the city and the reality You don't have $500,000, $750,000 in the budget to move over here unless we make significant sacrifices in other places.
And I could not agree more with the intent. I think there's almost like a logistics part of that too. I think understanding the importance, the gravity of the situation at hand, I think it's absolutely appropriate for us to have a more fleshed out approach rather than, individual pieces of legislation here and there. What I would also ask is that in the future, we sort of take that sentiment and apply it more robustly to all asks that go out of, anything that comes out of committee. When we have follow-up of any of the parties who are going to be required to produce that, to either pass it out of committee or to go to vote on the floor, scheduling once we have that information, I think is a reasonable request, because of late we've been getting a lot of things like literally 2 hours before a meeting, and that is not enough time to consume that information and then have the requisite conversations about it. So for all of the reasons you said, I completely agree with that sentiment.
I will say, and I agree with you, Councilmember Brody, but we can try, and this is a new administration, so perhaps things will be different.
Yeah, I would rather we try and set a standard and let people negotiate rather than never set a standard, never ask, and then.
If I could just finish my thought. It is something that it is a new administration, and we still need to move legislation. So I agree we have to move forward, and I also agree we need to have things, especially when it comes to in-depth things like finance, ahead of time. Sometimes it's difficult to do that, but agreed with the endeavor of doing it. Councilmember Robinson.
Again, we cannot hold up the process. She has a vision. We have to support her in her vision. I totally agree that $55,000 is a drop in the bucket. This is a massive undertaking. Cannabis revenue. The task force that was created before the city ever even touched a piece of cannabis revenue, a task force was created to see how this money is going to be spent. It's not being spent the way the recommendations came from the cannabis task force. So this is new generated income. So that is something that maybe the mayor's office should look into tapping in to take this program to the success level that I know she can take it in.
Councilmember Keegan.
Again, I'm just gonna jump in on the fiscal piece of that. So again, the county has critically failed the city when it comes to providing housing and homeless prevention services. They have failed. And so we are spending $750,000 to provide things that the county is supposed to provide. And that $750,000 is offset by our cannabis revenue. So if we take that revenue and we allocate it someplace else, that means that we cut that team.
So again, you're saying that this body didn't even take into consideration of a task force in their recommendations. Is that
that is not true?
Is that the reality of it?
Because again, those services are directed at addressing housing and homelessness, and specifically working on issues that are impacting districts that were disproportionately impacted by cannabis. So I'm just saying it comes with a cost.
Again, housing is not the only thing that's impacted through the war on cannabis. So again, this cannabis revenue should not just be earmarked for housing. So again, like I say, that may be something that the mayor's office can look to tapping in. If we got the tilted tittle, the money has to come from somewhere.
Councilmember Johnson.
can I request, right, to the day, how much cannabis revenue has came to the city? Is there any way I can get a
We get
number on that?
roughly $500,000 per year.
Excuse me?
We get roughly $500,000 per year.
And growing.
We get roughly $500,000 per year. We have not
Yeah,
seen,
that's dark. And
we have not-
the cannabis revenue has grown.
we have
double
not
since-
seen significant growth in the last 2 years in that revenue.
If I may, this might be something that is worth as a request with that broader discussion.
I just want to say it's in a budget book too, like all the revenue that we have collected from cannabis revenue. So in 2024, it was 345,000. 2025 has been 575,000. So again,
Thank you,
I'm curious to see what the cannabis report, just for everyone to share, so everyone's on the same page. But again, I think that everyone has to see the cannabis report as relates to where that money is going. We can have further discussion. But thank you.
Thank you for that, Councilmember Bernani. Councilmember Ballard, do you mind speaking to the leadership discussion with the
Sure.
mayor's office?
I'm going to be brief. So we did discuss local law F and resolution 1932-36R. We did talk about different viewpoints on this issue by our members, and that it will be going to committee and will be discussed there and flushed out. So that was part of our conversation. We also talked about maximizing our resources and the resources that we currently have and how we can maximize those as well. We did also learn about the appointment of a new member for CPRB. That was going to be announced this week, and it was announced yesterday, if I'm correct, by Dr. Jones. So that gives us another member to the Community Police Review Board. But as many of you may also be aware, we did have a member resign from the board. So hopefully we can fill that position, because that was a council member, that was council appointee that resigned. So hopefully we can get some applications and fill that, as well as hopefully the mayor can also fill the one remaining slot that they have open on that body. And that's about it.
Thank you very much. We also we got new Commissioner of Deeds oaths that need to be signed. So you can see, Brian, if you would like to fill out your Commissioner of Deeds thing to help really with petitioning. Or any other thing that Commissioner of Deeds do, but I'm not sure what those are, honestly. Does anybody else have anything else this evening? No, motion to adjourn.
Motion adjourned.
Thank you so much, everyone.